Coming to you live from downtown Detroit, this is Benzinga's PreMarket Prep with your host, Joel Elconin.
This is a volatile puppy here, isn't it?
And Dennis Thick.
I'm bidding a penny. I will buy the stock for a penny.
With everything you need to start your trading day. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Thursday edition of Benzinga's PreMarket Prep. I'm Spencer Israel, as always, joined by Joel Elconin and Dennis Thick on the show today. Delta having earnings this morning, got a lot of ratings, as is the norm. It seems like every day the past few weeks, at least to start the year, we've had a ton of ratings that are actually moving stocks. We'll talk about that. An acquisition as well, SSNC making an acquisition. We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll have a laugh at the lights at CES going out. As well, our guest today, Scott Freeze, new guest. He's the CIO of Sabretooth Advisors. He started a FANG ETF. We would talk to Scott all about that at 8:35. Joel, how's it going this morning? In the S&Ps, are we back up?
Our computers are working today.
Okay, they're working.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, I don't know what happened yesterday. 4.25, that's how we're trading up. Pre-market high, 56.50. Not much until your all-time high, which was made on Tuesday at 60 even. So that's another target. Coming back downside, pre-market low, 47.75. Really not much there. But if we pull back to the close, 50.50, I'll take a look at that. Our upside target here based on the 9-day average trading range takes us up into the 60 handle, 27.65. Crude continues to rip. We went 61, 62, 63, and now banging on the door is 64. Your high is 64.08. You talk about this one with Dennis when he comes on, but monthly charts, when you have months like this and you go, wow, from 100 down to 50 and it takes that long, a lot of air going down, a lot of air coming up. We'll talk about that. Gold will refuse to cave in here. Gold is trading up 60 cents, just hanging to 320. The daily chart's telling you, man, we may have found a top here, but on the other hand, will not pull back. We'll keep an eye on 1330. And the cryptocurrencies have been active in both directions, but still really in a trading range. Bitcoin, under 14,000, 13,688. I'm glad I got out of some of that position. Dennis, how you doing here? 8:04 on this warm, very warm Thursday morning.
It's the warm before the storm.
53. 53.
I'm doing better than the guy that just paid $642 for Victor Harry Ida, because here, and this is kind of comical, you can just see how crazy this has gotten. Somebody didn't read the headline very closely. Anyway, so Vital Hub formally enters healthcare blockchain market. The symbol in Canada is VHI. It's a different stock over here. VHI is Valhai over here. And somebody on that headline just bought 10,000 shares at 642, up 10%. And they're probably now oh, oops. That's a quick way to throw away, 10,000 shares on 44 cents. Quick way to throw away $4,000.
Do you think that
That was an oops. Somebody did an oops. It's funny because I brought it up too. I brought the same thing, VHI. I was like, oh no, that's a different stock. It's in Canada. And then I was like, no, I'm definitely not buying that. The headline just broke at 8 o'clock, and then boom, you can see the trade that occurred there at 8 o'clock with 40 seconds. So just after the headline broke. So somebody's now offering 2,000. Somebody's trying to wiggle out of this one. Good luck, buddy. Hey, read the headline a little bit closer next time. Anyways, they bought there, obviously, and not good.
You know what that reminds me of? You remember the old Riviera tool takeout? It was a NASDAQ stock in Tesla. There was I don't think you were here, Spencer. I think you were still in junior high. And it was, Brent, you remember that one. And everyone just piled into the stock, RIVT. And it was like a NASDAQ stock. There was a penny stock. It was actually a small company, I think, in Grand Rapids. And never opened again. People just bought a huge volume, and then it ended up shutting down, and it was a private company. I think it was called Riviera Corp that was taken over. So always check your symbols on that. That guy's going to have
Got to get the symbols right and make sure, even if the symbol's right, make sure it's in the country. It's VHI in Canada, not VHI in the US. So different stock. And a lot of times, there is, obviously a U.S. listing. I don't know if there's a U.S. listing on Vital Hub. I think it's on the venture exchange there. So VHI in Canada, not VHI in the U.S. That was an oops on somebody's part. Okay. So that just a little bit of comedy for you when we start the day there. Well, not comical for the guy that bought it up there, but you're gonna see how much the hype is. People are so excited they don't even think of them buy 10,000 shares up there. Yeah, yowzers. So, okay, where do you want to go? Because we got ratings, we got a couple of earnings reports. I wouldn't mind talking Kodak first, though, because Kodak did set up just the way we kind of anticipated it setting up. I tried to play it, too, and it was just a tough. There was no locate. So, anyways, yesterday on the show, you can rewind the tape if you want to listen to it, but I said, where the stock opens, mark that price down. If it comes back down through that opening price, that's your cue to get the hell out of it. $12.50 is where it opened. It chopped around there for a little bit and then snuck back down through it. And obviously, continued down. As it was coming through the $12.50, I was still looking for locates. Couldn't find a locate on KODK anywhere. I looked at the options. They were wide, though. And I'm like, I don't want to pay that much. Then I even went to the warrants. I looked there and I was like, well, I could have hit the warrants, KODK.WS. I could have hit it, I think, 220. It was like 220 to 240. I'm like, I'm paying like a 10% spread here. I was like, oh, it's just tough go. So anyways, I should have hit it because the warrants did come back down, but it's tough to come in these things. You got to pay these spreads. That's why you want to have the actual locate so I don't have to pay the wicked spread. But, if anybody in the chat played it through on the options, because I know we obviously had Jeremy Newsom that was saying he was going to try it on the options. We didn't talk to Jeremy to see if he did play that or not, but it was a good call and it was a good way to play it down. It went down to just under $10. Now it's under 10 here again this morning. And I think, this is going to maybe fill that gap.
Yeah, currently trading came down to $9. That high 13.28. When did it hit that? Did that hit that in the pre-market session? Boom, boom, boom. Let's see here. No, you got that print in the regular session, and that great call, Dennis. 1240 open, right? Goes up to 1328. People are buying, looking for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Then you come back down here through that 1270, and actually it even went down to 10 and gave you another chance back at that opening level. So Kodak, it was nice while it lasted.
Well, hey, hold on a second. Do you remember we had Chris Nelson from Social Reality on the Bitcoin show?
I do.
Okay. I do. We spoke to him. One of our staff writers, Lizzie, spoke to him yesterday and asked about this like blockchain technology trend in random companies. He said that digital rights management is probably in his top 3 for blockchain use cases. Right. So, and that's why we're talking about this because
I agree.
Right. It's a good use case. We agree on that.
We do agree.
So who's to say we can't go higher?
I'm just saying.
On Kodak?
Sure, yeah, we agree it's a good use case. That the reason they're using it is good. There's a business.
It doesn't sound like it's just flat out manipulating their price like all these other companies seem to be doing. So I'll give them that, but I don't know. I'm still a fader of Kodak here. Stock went from $3 up to over 12 here on this news. Maybe it's not one that's going to go right back down to where it came from. So it's a good point you're making there, Spencer.
Yeah, here I'll read you this
I
quote.
think it's still lofty, and I think when the CEO comes out and says, "Well, it's not worth a doubling of the price," well, that gets you down to 6. Just off the CEO comments, and I don't know. What are you saying, Joel?
Well, here's what he said. He said, "quote I don't see this as something like Long Island iced tea making an announcement to get attention.
Good point.
This is what the technology should be used for."
Good point. It's a good point. So it doesn't change my thesis here. I still think it's going to fill the gap eventually and be down. And the gap I'm talking about, if I actually go to the intraday charts, the gap from just going from the 9th to the 10th, you had a gap in the charts at, what is the pricing there on the gap, Joel? 765. So to fill the gap, you'd come down to 765. I don't know if we fill the gap here today, but I think we fill the gap.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get in from the it was amazing follow through that it had. I really thought when that news broke Dennis, you talk about the 2-day move, you got it, but I'd be more interested in saying, and I got to talk to Emily here, my young daughter, who's a photographer, and she told me some of her friends were buzzing about it. So, I mean, if it gives you a chance to protect your rights, I just don't know if everyone creates an individual coin. I just don't know how that's going to work out. But
in any regard here, there's a good point being made that Spencer's making a good point that this isn't just like a scam, basically, somebody just trying to participate. They're actually trying to find a use for it. So props to Kodak for doing that.
All right, Samir's in the chat. I don't think I've seen him here before. He's asking about a stock TECK, and I don't know much about it here. Tech Resources.
Canadian. I think it's Canadian stock, Tech Resources, traded actively over here as well. I mean, let's look at oil. Oil's been hot. You put that tech chart right on top of the oil. That's what you got to know. So you can do anything. You can talk about any stock individually, but when you're talking the oil stocks, and especially this one here, that chart is identical to oil. So where oil goes, Tech Resources is going.
Yeah, big march up here. Series of higher lows here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 higher lows. So I would just wait for that trend to be broken. Maybe instead of trying to pick a top here, just keep an eye on the lowest of or the highest of those lows instead of trying to pick a top. Tech Resources here. Let's look at that on a weekly. Man, it spiked up to 33.76. Let's go monthly. Just see what the all-time high is in that one. Oh no, that was once an $84 stock. So just keep an eye on that winning streak and the highest of the lows, and try and maybe get out on the downside instead of trying to pick a top.
Is there any NAFTA risk? I mean, you've got to watch a lot of companies in Canada right now for NAFTA risk. So yes, your resource companies, obviously, I think it's something like crazy amount. I don't know how much of our exports, Canadian exports, and oil go down to the US, but it is significant. And I'm thinking in some cases it might be as much as 75% for some of these companies. So you got to really watch how much. Obviously, there's more exposure there. You got to go look at, I don't know off the top of my head what Tech Resources exposure is to the US, but significant. So dropping out of NAFTA, not going to help. Obviously, nobody's caring about that right now. So, we'll see, but, there is definitely going to be some companies that are going to be affected by this, and something like this could be one of them.
The Canadian dollar's come off the low, Dennis, but I mean, it's not any gangbusters here.
Well, it got hit though yesterday. So the Canadian dollar got hit because of the NAFTA stuff. So, they actually said that and the interest rates they have an interest rate meeting there in Canada next week. And the odds before the Trump and before the whole NAFTA stuff of an increase in rates in Canada was like 90%. That dropped to 60% yesterday just because of this whole NAFTA stuff. So if the Canadian dollar, if interest rates aren't going up, that's obviously why the Canadian dollar starts to get hit. So we know, and this is one thing, we can just go on a quite slight tangent here. You get BK on CNBC saying, well, you can't, it's hard to value any currency. It's hard to value Bitcoin because the currency, and it's hard to value any currency. That argument doesn't hold water. So I don't know what BK is talking about with that. Tim Seymour called him out last night on CNBC for it. I give props to Tim Seymour.
Who's BK?
Actually tweeted out for props because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can for sure value currencies, and they go with interest rates. I mean, there are so many factors that go into when you have the Canadian dollar. You can look at, well, how is the oil market? It's an oil currency. How is your export market? How is NAFTA going to affect this now? You look at that. You look at trade. You look at interest rates as the number one thing that's going to affect currencies. If interest rates are flying up in Canada, that will propel the Canadian dollar. So I don't know, BK maybe has to take an economics course on that because that doesn't make any sense. What he's saying, you can't value traditional currencies, because you can. Now, Bitcoin, you can't do any of that because there's no interest rates. And that's been my argument the whole time. There's, obviously a lot of other factors that are involved with the pricing of Bitcoin, but to value it fundamentally, you can't use interest rates. You can't use, look at the country because it's in every country. It's not, it's a completely different animal. So I don't even know if you can call these things currencies, because obviously, and we don't want to go on the complete tangent. We've given these arguments before. But I'm just saying, when you look at the Canadian dollar, you look at what is interest rates going on, because that's the number one driver for a currency is interest rates.
All right, let's move on to some earnings here, and I want to start with Delta here, and it looks like they've had a nice beat. These airlines have been hot, and you know what's interesting about this rally is that it's doing it in the face of higher oil prices, which is, a lot of times, you see the opposite effect here. Let's go with the Delta numbers. We'll look at Delta.
It's a great point. I just want to, before you go to the numbers, you're making a good point here. And I have actually, traded this for years, oil versus airlines. And oil goes up, airlines typically go down. I can tell you that trade in the last 2 years has not really had much correlation at all. It's funny how these things just break down. But if you look at oil and you see oil flying straight up, you would automatically assume that all the airlines would be in the gutter. And that has not been the case. The airlines are going right along with it. So call it this rampant bull market, call it whatever you want, but it seems like airlines are immune to oil prices right now. It's not always going to be that way. It will come back in. And there is a negative correlation long-term between oil and airlines. But right now, that correlation is completely broke down. And if you're trading, airlines against oil, it's not working. Now, eventually, like I said, everything will come back. It makes economic sense. It makes fundamental sense that when oil is strong, airlines are going to be weak. That has just not been the case in the last year.
All right, one word here for the delta number, taxes. So taxes. So Q4 EPS, 96 cents versus 83 cents, nice 13-cent beat for Q4. Sales, 10.25 billion versus 10.16 billion. So the Q4 numbers beat. As far as guidance goes, Q1 EPS guidance coming in a little light, 60 to 80 cents versus an 83-cent estimate. But they're raising their fiscal year 2018 guidance 20% due to the expected tax law changes. So that's it.
I can't comment really on the tax stuff because I'm not an accountant.
Because you don't pay taxes.
So I don't know how that's going to impact it. But I can just tell you the airlines have been hot, and it's all about momentum here. And they were in the gutter back. When were they in the gutter? Like back before September. They were hitting them all in the late summer, early fall, and they turned around on a dime, and they've caught a bid the last couple months, and they're all hot now. So here's Delta. It's hot again, too. You had a big move in UAL yesterday, just a huge move up there. The airlines are back.
And you know who was buying the airlines? This is a long time ago, even before that dip in November. You know who was a big buyer of the airlines?
Wasn't it Buffett?
Yeah, it was. And
He's right. A lot of times, man, people like to dog him, and I saw him taking some heat for his crypto comments yesterday. But I will tell you, in the long run, and Warren Buffett just,
nails it.
He didn't get to where he is, being the second richest man in the world, just not knowing his stuff. He goes right with, he's long enough and he's rich enough that he can wait for the market because there's that saying, the markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Not if you're Warren Buffett. He can stay solvent longer than the market can stay irrational. So he outweights that. And that is luxury that he has because he has so much money, and he doesn't get heavily on margin. And he doesn't short stocks, I don't think, does he? I don't think Buffett shorts anything ever, does he?
No.
Yeah, so he's good. You can if you're not on margin, you're not shorting stocks, you can last forever. So that saying is, when you're on margin, that it can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, because you can stay solvent if you're not on margin.
You got a nice pop here. I'm looking at the chart from Delta. I think we had some traders. I'm not sure if it was DC1 or who it was, but they were all over these airlines yesterday. Continuation move here in Delta Airlines. This is a new all-time high. Folks, I'll just give you the print that you saw here, 58.30. That is your pre-market high. I mean, you just had a mound of resistance at 56.75. That's history, but I'd wait for a pullback to that area. Man, you must have had 810 highs in that area. Above 58.30, use your half and whole numbers. I am a frequent flyer mile. It's where I do all my miles. I love Delta. I do.
I'm a fan of Delta, too. I mean, maybe it's because Detroit, that's the nicest hub in Detroit. But if I have a choice, I always try to fly Delta. I mean, it's not the cheapest airline. If you want to go cheap, you can always go Spirit. They are always the cheapest, yeah. But when you're flying on the Save Airlines, the ticker symbol is what it is, SAB. You don't get any extras. You don't get any nice little drinks or anything. It's just basically the flight there. And it's a little shaky even, I think, sometimes. But
I have problems sitting in a shoebox, though. I'm a little bit bigger, and just sitting in a shoebox is just a little uncomfortable.
You're not bigger. I'm way bigger than you.
You're not. Are you?
I'm borderline fat.
No, you're not. We got to get the video up. Spencer was supposed to get the video up yesterday so we could see how fat that is.
215 pounds.
215?
Yeah.
Oh.
I sat on my desk too long. I traded too many stocks.
What's the all-time high?
Right there. I'm
Really?
pushing it.
You're breaking out?
push.
Are you up against resistance or support though?
Yeah.
Well, I've been stuck in a trading range between
All right.
205 and 215 since I got married 10 years ago. So
All right, I'm selling.
I've been under 200 pounds since I got married. But
Wow.
I get up to 215. I start to watch my diet a little bit, get down to 205, and I try to eat a little bit more. So I'm definitely in a trading range. They're asking my height, Fuzzy. I'm
5'6". He's 5'6".
5'6". Yeah, I'd definitely be fat if I was 5'6". I'm 6 foot right on the button.
Wow, you
So,
got me by about.
The doctor says I'm supposed to be between 180 and 185, so about 20 pounds over.
That's
a little
me.
bit heavy.
That's me. 6 foot 180, man. So you got me there. All right. Yeah, 5'11" and 3/4.
Swimming you do. I gotta start swimming with you.
All right, UAL, that broke out yesterday, trading up again, 74.48. That was your pre-market high. LUV, let's see here. That's trading up at $64. Let's see. I think it's been higher than that. That had a real bad run, but put a double bottom in here. Maybe see what happens at the double top at 65. And then we had one guy in this chat. I can't even know if he's still around. He loved JetBlue. And that one has been a little bit more of a trading range, but keep an eye on Delta. That's going to be your leader. 22.35 print there in JetBlue.
Let's jump over here to ratings land. There's a lot of. We didn't get our last earnings stock. KB Homes.
What airlines did you buy though, Dennis? You bought one a little while ago.
They sold it. Yeah, and I said I did. I think I told the story last week on the show. I bought on the way down, which was a mistake. You got to buy them when they come back up through it. So I just sold it in this recent consolidation. I just sold it in the last month. So around like $43, $44 area. So it was good. I was up in it, but I was too early because I took heat on it. So when you buy it on the way down, you're always taking heat. But I've never been that scared to buy stocks on the way down again because, I'm longer term and I'm like Warren Buffett. I'm like the value. When they get too cheap, then I want to jump in there and buy them. But sometimes your timing would be better if you would just hold off a little bit, wait, and then, wait for your price and then wait for it to start to turn and the momentum go in your favor because you're always fighting the tape when you're buying when they're going straight down.
Okay. All right. And KB Homes, numbers on KB Homes.
Yep. Yesterday after the bell, 84 cents versus 77 cents and 1.4 versus $1.36 billion. So beat on the EPS, beat on the sales for KB Homes.
Stock trading up. Lennar reported the day before they traded up. I always like to look at what a peer has done and how they traded off good earnings. Len actually got hit a little bit, but then they came in with their buying shoes on. So KB Homes here is already trading up on it. I can go look at the book here, Joel, break down the technicals while I go hunt the book down, see if I see any pesky orders out there.
Let's just take a look. I'm just looking at that Lennar 66.24 open. That was a pretty flat open. Went down to 65.75. So if you
the shakeout,
a little bit of shake and bake, but came back up through that open. There was a double top in KB Homes here at 34.58. Went off the board at 34.35. Let's look at the pre-market trade. We hit 35.99. So there's a whole number for you to keep an eye on. I'm not sure Dennis is hunting down the paper there. All-time high, first time up to 36. That will be a target on the outside, coming back on the downside. In order to fill the gap, the old double top, 34.50 and 55 and 58. So if you want to be quick on a quick decline, I'd maybe get my bid out there at 34.60, 34.65.
Now we're jumping to ratings land, and there's some really interesting ones here this morning. I'm going to go right to Morgan Stanley. They were very busy last night. They upgraded 2 stocks. Expedia is one of them, and Zillow is the other one. Let's go to Expedia first. It's up $3.50 in the pre-market. They're upgrading it to overweight. They're raising their price target up to $160. It's a big price target. I like this one because it's a breakout. Ooh. So you've had major resistance here around 128.5, and now you're breaking out and getting into a gap area. So I think on pullbacks, I think there's going to be lots of buyers on this one. So I like the call. It's breaking it out. I wish I would have had a chance to play through it. You're not probably going to get that. But if we do pull back for whatever reason, let's say, it's, opens up at 130, 131, maybe, you get a few over profit, taking it down the 129 handle. I think there's lots of buyers. I think that would be the opportunity to get long.
And you don't care about the gap. You got a gap all the way down to 28.13.
Well, you'd love to fill the gap, Joel, down to 28.13 and get in there and pick it up really on the cheap. I think people step ahead of it, though.
And I think also on this one, you're gonna find some shorts here. I'm not sure what the short interest on this, but you were sitting pretty, man. This thing when it 145, you wake up the next day 125, goes down to 115, and then you had your rally up to this 127.50 area, came back down, challenged the low. Shorts trying to bring it in this area between 117 and 122 and a half. Not sure why you got the bump from 22 and a half to 25, but right now, I mean, shorts are on their heels, and good point by Dennis. I don't think they're going to be able to fill the gap in this one, nor am I shorting this thing until it gets to 144.99. That would fill the gap. Price line's been coming up too. That filled it. Look at that. That filled its earnings gap. How nice is that? That's a perfect looking chart. Let's see if Priceline is turning higher up.
Wow, that came a long ways back. I mean, when you buy this is the market. When stuff gets hit hard on the earnings, it seems to come back eventually. And here you are 2 months later. It was down to 1650. Gave you a couple shots down there just for a few days, and it's all the way back. Filled it. I mean, why can't Expedia do the same thing?
I'm not saying I'm bored this one. I'm not fading this one, Dennis.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. So it's hard to fade anything, but when you got a gap above you and you watched your peer do it already, I mean, it's not going to do it overnight here, but next month or two, I could see this thing $145 stock again. So hard to fade.
Don't fade.
The other one, Morgan Stanley upgrade last night was Zillow, and there's two ticker symbols for this one, so you pick your poison. ZG, as Z as we say in Canada, or Z, or Z as we say over in the States, ZZG. Both of those stocks trading up about 4% in the pre-market. Very light volume, but again, this is an upgrade from Morgan Stanley, which is significant. Price target $50, Zillow.
Do you think these guys look at the charts and say, man, if we could just push this thing through?
You know what? Sometimes, yeah, I think so. I think there's a combo factor. So they may like the fundamentals, and then I think that sometimes they're right in the reports and get the timing just right on them too. I think so. I think there's a technical. I don't think all of them do it, but I think some of them definitely look at the charts.
I mean, that's as solid as breakout as you're going to get from the 43.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and there it is. So now that old resistance is going to act as new support if you come back down to that area. Boy, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick a top in here, right? Look at that area that you have. A high in the mid 43 handle, which we've already tested here. And then you get up tell me what to lean on between 43 and a half and 45 and change. There's absolutely nothing in there. Then the gap between 45 and 47. So I don't know. This one, long consolidation after decline from 51.23. And I just wanted to look at Redfin. Isn't that that's like the online real estate? That had a nice run, pullback. Sean Udall, I know
he's the ticker symbol for Redfin.
Redfin is RDFN. And Sean was taught. We had Sean on it. What did we had him on a couple times in December. I know he was talking about this thing in the 20s. Did get up over to 31, but I just like to check this one because this is like the online real estate play.
Still in ratings land here. VMW catching an upgrade at Cowen. VMware is breaking out here too, back above $130. You got some resistance about 132.80, but this is a stock that has just been hot too as of late. You had the little pullback there in December. Again, that was a buying opportunity. That was during the tech wreck there when a lot of tech stocks were down 10%. They all came right back. VMware is back here as well. Gets the upgrade here from Cowen this morning. It's off to the races.
And VMware, wow, this thing was down. I remember this thing well under 100, and now we're up here. Nice kind of 3-day decline, but getting it back today may have a little bit of overhead supply. Let's just look at a couple of the daily highs here. We are above your 2 and 3 day high. I'll give you a couple targets if you're trading this in a 132 handle. Last Friday's high was 229, another high at 280, and 280's been the high of the move. Just taking a look here, Dennis, at the Google, our chat going on here on Google, and Ham's Beer. Remember Ham's Beer? Is that still around?
Oh, yeah. Isn't it the water that makes it? What's it say on the cans? Ham's a tough beer. That's I'm a beer drinker and I'm a Canadian and I can drink some tough beers. It's a tough beer to go down, but what's it say on the can? Isn't it it's the water that makes it? Isn't it? I got to see the can.
It's cheap though, right? Isn't this like the cheap beer that you used to drink?
Oh yeah, you can buy a case of this beer for like $12.
Right.
Oh, it's born in the land of sky blue waters.
Ham's beer.
Ham's beer. I've drank some Ham's beer. I tell you, we go on a tangent here, but it's one of those beers when you have two, you wake up the next day feeling like you had 10. It's tough beer.
Is that kind of like it? At 10, she was a 2. At 2, she was a 10.
Wow, we don't know about that, but
we've gone way off the rails, Joel. Here. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. A31. Any?
Like we got to bring this one back. We don't want to go on this tangent.
Well,
Keep Dennis away from this tangent.
He was at this point. He was asking about HMNY, and so that's the only reason.
That's how you went to Hams?
Yes, that's his handle.
That's gotta be the worst tangent we've ever done on the show.
That's his thing in the chat. Thing with the $39 came down, found a lot of support at the $6 area, gapped again. Let's see. I mean, this is such a newsy stock. I mean, it's always about the news. Trading back down here. I mean, I think you don't find really good support in this thing until you feel the gap from yesterday. Let's see what the gap. This is the Movie Pass one that we talk about all the time and had that ridiculous run. Maybe if it comes back into 750, that fills the gap from yesterday. If you're looking at a target on the upside and maybe longer term, this thing has struggled at 990 yesterday. Hasn't been over $10 since it gapped down, but this is all about Movie Pass. And I mean, if you look at some of these cinemas,
they mentioned blockchain yesterday. That's all they need to do.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, that's what they did. They mentioned blockchain yesterday. It's this company that they watch a stock go from $3 to 30 some dollars. And then it got lefted up there when Andrew left from Citron, said it was worth less than 20, got murdered that day and fell to less than 20 that day. Andrew left the most powerful person on the face of the earth right now. But, here they are looking at how we can get our stock going again. Oh, well, mention some blockchain stuff. So I don't even know if it was official, if it was just rumors or not.
No,
but that's what
it
was.
The CEO went on Bloomberg last night, and he was asked about that. And he declined to give a specific date for when they're going to be incorporating blockchain technology into their product. Second thing he said that caught my eye was he said that MoviePass, they're responsible for 1 in every 35 movie ticket sales. That's what he said. So that would seem like a lot to me.
Yeah, that does sound crazy. In any regard here, you got to respect, when they say blockchain, it goes up. But, this isn't a Kodak moment where they actually were trying to utilize the technology. I think this is more of a, let's get our stock price higher again, in my opinion.
All right. We got about 1 minute and 10 seconds here till we bring in our guest, Scott Freeze.
Balances.
What you got for balances?
GE, it's there again, and I'm benefiting from it. I'm long GE in my trading portfolio, long it overnight. I keep buying it at the close and selling it at the open, and it's worked for, 5 or 6 days in a row here now. So here we are again. It's up 1.5%. You know what? I actually stuck with some GE yesterday too because I like the breakout through 70. So I actually held it all day. I never do that. Held it. I held it overnight here, and now I'm still in those shares. I'm probably going to lighten up here now because it's had a pretty good move again. It just seems to work though. Every single day there seems to be a big buy imbalance, and those guys know stuff. Remember on the way down, GE had a sell imbalance every morning. It's like 6-7 days in a row it's had a buy imbalance. This guy's making some money now. So 652,000 shares to buy. So that is significant. So it continues to be there. Impressive move here for GE. Once again, up 1.5%. GE's in breakout mode.
Yeah, I've been kicking myself. I thought that whole number 19 would hold it. So I am flatted, but going to look for a re-entry point. There's a lot of air in this thing. You find a little seller here at 1920. Not sure what he's doing, but someone is putting a lid on that. So I would keep an eye clear on that. I mean, we're right there at 19. So hardly a good number. But if you look at the dailies, 19 and 20, basically in one day, you went from just under 21 down to 19. So it goes down easy through an area, comes back easy through an area. Spencer, what we got on the docket for
8:35? We're going to go grab a new guest, Scott Freeze, CIO of Sabretooth Advisors, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep, brought to you by Benzinga Pro. I'm your co-host, Joel Elconin, along with Dennis Dick, and we have a new guest on the line here, and it's Scott Fries, Chief Investment Officer at Sabretooth Advisors. Scott, how you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Good here. Balmy day here in Detroit, 53 degrees, so we're happy. Happy and warm. A little bit about your background here in the markets and how you came to your current position.
Sure. So in the 90s, I grew up on the buy side at the Vanguard Group. Made a switch over to the sell side in the early 2000s. Worked at Night Trading Group for a few years on the program desk, and went to a boutique firm in Manhattan to start a program and ETF desk for them. Through the sell side, I kind of got the inkling of they're not always aligned with the buy side's interests. My background in Vanguard kind of delved into more than the sell side was offering the buy side customers. And then when I started the ETF desk, it just became more of the same. And over the course of probably 10 years or so, started to focus more on just doing the research on the ETF side and research for clients and investment advisors, which led to a conference meeting where somebody was complaining that there are no pure play FANG ETFs or anything that's heavily FANGish, and decided at that point in time to kind of get back to the roots and put something out there that's for investors and create the FNG ETF. So it's Advisor Shares, New Tech and Media, basically FANG centric. And
before we go into that, just
well,
real quickly, so you spent some time on some trading desks, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
Our audience always likes to hear good stories. Do you have any story from being on a trading desk that's helped shape your investment philosophy or your career path in the markets?
I think being on a trading desk, especially a larger trading desk that's broken into so many different pieces between retail order flow, broker dealer order flow. So your Scott trades, TD Ameritrades, E-Trades, versus, two rows away, you have the people that are just trading for investment advisors, and then another aisle away are the market makers. And the same thing is for each group. It was just about, how much revenue am I getting, and what do where can I print this, as opposed to probably what is best X. Now, obviously that's a different time before Reg NMS. But it really was kind of shocking and glaring. And once you get out of your 20s and early 30s, you kind of look at things differently and you say, how are they doing this, and how are they getting away with this, and where's the best interest? And that's when you go back and I think about my time at Vanguard and some of the fills, especially during the go-go days of the late 90s with all the internet stocks and the tech stocks, and seeing, now I understand why my fills were where they were.
Okay.
But also seeing that quote unquote sophisticated investors, mutual fund companies included, they're not always the best traders. They don't always execute in the best possible way to get the lowest possible price. It seems that a number of them just look for the easiest way to get the trade done.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you get the idea for this FANG ETF here, and I'm going back on the historical charts here, and relatively new, started in July of 2017. Were you when you came up with this idea that you wanted to do it, were you a little surprised that it wasn't already out there?
Yeah. And it's funny, when it came up, it actually came up probably in late 2015. A money manager asked, why isn't there a pure play? And I said, no, there's plenty out there. And when I started weeding through the usual suspects, you saw that the weightings were just not that FANG intensive. And on top of that, they were passively managed products. So they're all benched to an index, maybe 50, 60 names in a portfolio. So even if they did have a nice percentage of the FANG names themselves, they couldn't get that high because of the number of constituents within the portfolio. And there was no room for them to change and adapt. And that was one of the things that, I wish we would have been quicker to bring this to market. It took a lot longer than we thought. But one of the things that we saw with that when we were going back and forth was, FANG's the market leader now. It's been the market leader for a while. But if this was the turn of the 20th century, a FANG index would be railroad stocks. If it was the 20s, the FANG index was going to be radio stocks. In the 90s, it was Netscape and Yahoo and anything that said .com after it. So having a passive product like the other ones that were out there, we know that it's only a matter of time until the FANG names become, as they are, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, that they will be replaced by the next big companies, and they won't have the dynamic growth in the stock appreciation. So we decided to make ours actively managed so that we could adapt over time and put the next FANG names in and really focus less on the FANG names right now and more on what are the underlying characteristics of the FANG names so that we can keep a FANG style portfolio in perpetuity.
All right, so let's talk about some of the current top holdings, the criteria for them, and then there was one I know when we were talking the other day, there was one that you left out. I can't think of what. Maybe when we were talking about Tesla, but new tech and media. Talk about what's in there, the characteristics of these stocks, and looking forward. What characteristics are you looking for stocks moving into the future?
Sure. So obviously it's FNG. We're very heavy on the FANG names. I've looked at NVIDIA as the N as opposed to Netflix. Not that I think the Netflix is bad or that we don't have a heavy holding of it. But I think just the barriers to entry in that business, that would be the first one that I think would fall off. But ironically, we also hold Roku. So it's not that we don't like the space or the sector. It's just, I think that long term, that's the first of the FANG names that will no longer be a quote unquote FANG style. We also hold the STAB names. So that's the Chinese FANG stocks, Baba, Sina, Baidu, Tencent. When you take those 8 and you put it in there, that makes up probably over half of the portfolio.
Okay.
But what we try to do is break the portfolio into 3 tranches. We're going to have our FANG names, which will be, at least 30%, maybe 50% at any one point in time. And then our second tier are FANG-like names. So you'll have some of the STAB names in there, Microsoft, NVIDIA, if you don't include that as a FANG name. Companies like that still have dynamic growth, but they're not as cutting edge or offering as much performance as the FANG companies. And that's another 30 to 50%, depending on where the markets are. And then our third tier is the future FANG. So these are companies that we think could be doing something. They're going to be lower weighting, probably a 2% weighting in a 4 or 5 of the names. That's things like DXC, GTT, NICE, focusing more on 5G, robotics, security and fraud detection, cloud security, things like that, where we see dynamic growth in those areas, but you still can't say that these companies are going to go up 60% a year. So we try to find the ones that have the same underlying characteristics and those disruptive tendencies with new technology to go into that third tier.
I mean, that's the tier that I think a lot of our listeners would be interested in, the future FANG, because, this is where, you get the exponential growth when you can find these companies that nobody else has really discovered here yet. What is your process for trying to, find these companies, that could be the future FANG?
Yeah. So we have screening metrics for the portfolio itself. So they still have to meet the same criteria as anything that's going to be considered for the ETF. That's going to be the ADV concerns, average daily volume concerns. It has to have a certain market cap to even be considered for inclusion. And then from there, on the future FANG names, it's really a lot of fundamental analysis and research to identify what are the areas that we see that are coming out, and what's, I go back in time with like Mobileye was one of our, when we were first starting that was in our original portfolio, and it got bought out before we launched. But that would have been, like a future FANG name. We're looking at people that are doing new things, but not on the bleeding edge. So back to your point from Tesla earlier, that is the stock we talked about. We don't own Tesla. And I'm not saying that we'll never own Tesla, but I doubt that we will, because we want companies on the leading edge, not on the bleeding edge. We don't want companies that are maybe tremendous stocks, but could go from 300 to 100 in 2 weeks. Or companies that say, we'll be able to produce or distribute X numbers of products and generate X revenue, but they don't have factories to actually build the products. And it's just a really good story. That's the way I feel about Tesla. It's just a really good story, but as a company and a revenue generator, I don't see it. I think there's too much risk to it. So we take out those bleeding edge companies and just look at companies that are doing something dynamic. And it doesn't even have to be big. One of our original holdings was Square. And
another good one.
Yeah, I think $25 was its price when it went in. We blew it out in December, just because the Bitcoin craze had put it at extreme valuations.
Right.
It really didn't deserve. I still think it's a fantastic company, but there's at this point in time, there's just other companies that we think have more upside that are more stable.
Are there any small companies that you've been adding recently? Something that maybe hasn't ran yet?
Well, if some of the less exciting quote unquote companies, DXC Technologies, GTT, ABB, robotics company, CDW, Ebix. Those are probably the smallest companies that we have in there. But they've also, GTT specifically for the month of December was up 16%. So it's not that some of these haven't run. ABB was up 4% for December. NetEase was up, forget NetEase. NICE was up 5%. Ebix was up 2.5%. So they're not, it's not that they're not moving, but they're more slow and steady. And I think that once the revenues climb higher and once they become more mainstream and talked about, then I think that's where you start to see the exponential growth in the stock price.
And if
people stop talking about Bitcoin,
I was just going to go to that.
Semiconductor that's associated with it.
I was just going to go to that. That's kind of how we ended our conversation and stuff, and tech, media, Bitcoin. Just give us your quick thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the news out of South Korea today or last night on the cryptocurrency exchanges, obviously that hit Ethereum specifically hard. I think that market is the second largest outside of the U.S. dollars that these cryptocurrencies are trading on, especially Ethereum. It is benched to South Korean won. I'm not saying that Bitcoin's a bad product. I'm not saying that it's not an investment vehicle or a gamble, something you can make or lose your money on. But the problem that I have is the stocks such as the NVIDIA, the Square, the Overstock, things that because Bitcoin was flying, just got bought up by the general public to irrational levels that earnings won't justify. And there's no real pure play blockchain company that we could conceivably put in the portfolio I think IBM is probably the best blockchain company out there, but it's too big. It's not just a pure play or a focus. And we're not going to hold a Long Island iced tea because they put blockchain in the name, or some of these other stocks that have gone crazy because they had blockchain to the name. And some of the pure play ones that are really inexpensive, they don't meet the market cap values.
All right, we'll get some comments in the chat. They like that it's pretty actively managed and does keep the cost low, and that's good. Scott Fries, Chief Investment Officer at Sabretooth Advisors, creator of the FANG ETF. Just looking at the chart here, you had a nice run up off the IPO, and looks like you got a little bit of a pullback, but finding support and turning higher. Congratulations on creating that. Thanks for having us on. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, S&P futures peeling back a little bit, up only 3 points at 53.50. Your pre-market high is 56.50. Coming down to see if we can find mid-range on the day, and just let me see if the mid-range coincides with the close or where we at. Mid-range on the session is 52.25, so that's just above the close. Dennis, we haven't had a blockchain stock yet today, or did you mention one?
Well, we had the VHI one that I joked about, but that was in Canada, and obviously it's come right back down there because they messed up the ticker symbol. But no, there hasn't been really one jumping out here yet, so the blockchain filter is on. Obviously my filter screener can miss the odd thing. So if you do have one, chat, let us know, but I don't see one here this morning either.
It looks like that trader just took his loss right away, right? Goes up to 6.
No, it hasn't traded enough. So they bought 10,000 and another 5 at 54. They bought 10,500 and 3,000 traded. I think the trader's stuck.
Yeah.
So the VHI we're talking about this morning, somebody messed up. So just to recap, Vital Hub formally enters healthcare blockchain market. Symbol is VHI in Canada. VHI in the US is a different stock. And somebody immediately bought 642, paid up 10% for the stock, thinking it was the blockchain play. And then they're like, oh, wrong exchange. So now it's way back down to $5.94, but it's only trading a few hundred shares. I'd imagine somebody's stuck in that.
Yep. All right. As I mentioned, the S&Ps here. Tattoo is saying that we do have a blockchain announcement. SECO. Do we have anything on that? Launch of SECO. There we got a new one.
Great call. Thanks, chat, for saving me. It did not hit my filter. Unless it was from last night. Was this from, I don't know what time this was at, because I didn't scroll back in my filter that far.
I don't even see.
Grab the pen too.
I don't even see a press release or filing. Where is it from?
Maybe it's a rumor or something. I don't see it either. I don't see I just looked at the press releases too. Like mine scrapes the press releases. So I don't see
does Benzinger Pro.
This one.
I'm using Benzinger Pro.
Right. Okay. Okay then.
I don't know. I'd be careful on this one. China's largest premium e-commerce platform announced a tap into blockchain. This is just on Twitter here, so we'll have to see on that one. From Sharing Economy, I don't know. Old Tech Asia.
Well, it looks like though. Yeah, see sharp gains early blockchain initiative. No, there was. I'm trying to just read the headlines here too, but yeah, I didn't see an official press release on this one though. But anyways, obviously it's working out here for some people this morning. It's up 53%.
Hey, Brent just noted, he just messaged me that YECO is also moving, and he thought it was odd that it was YECO and SECO. Thought that was
YECO just traded up. It looks like it's 742, just 800 shares, and it's right back offered here. So I don't know if somebody messed up again this morning. People are too excited. They're hitting the wrong tickers. But I don't see anything on that, so I don't think that one's related, unless it was an oops.
Did we cover all of our earnings and ratings?
Well, we were still going through ratings, so we talked VMware, Chevron catching an upgrade at BMO, Restoration Hardware. Who upgraded Restoration Hardware, Spencer?
It was Loop Capital.
Loop Capital upgrading Restoration Hardware, RH. They're talked that one. We haven't talked that one for a while. It's up $2 this morning in the pre-market on the upgrade.
This one. Big old run to 109.53. Pulling back. I don't know. This is just, I won't say it's my nemesis, but I just, one stock, Dennis and I were just too partial on this one. because going into the stores. But hit 109.53, had a little bit more of a gap fill than you probably wanted to have. 90 was the gap fill, went down to 85 and change, but put in a double bottom here. You do have a little bit of resistance at 95. Let's see what they're doing with this upgrade here. Pre-market trading. No, not quite yet. They even took 94. So a little bit overhead supply. Not sure how much this upgrade is going to move the market, but just, keep an eye here on 95. What were the last 2 days highs? And 90. Well, last 3 days high, 94.60, 577, and 5 even. So split the middle of that. Call that 95 and a quarter. Dennis, we got some big bank earnings coming out tomorrow, and I just want to, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. Just want to comment on the trading action in these. I tend to see over the years a little bit more of a trading range, ahead of a report. Using the previous day's highs and lows, maybe for a little scalping. People want to. Well, if you're short going into the report, you're pretty much all underwater. If you're long, do you do a little trimming into the report? Because sometimes even when JP Morgan has good numbers, they still hit it.
Yeah.
Any tips for trading stock?
Great point you're making here. And obviously, we can just talk JP Morgan if you want. These have been big runs. They have run up into the earnings reports here. It feels a little different this time. Last earnings season, what was happening is they were running up ahead of the numbers, and then they got hit after. But it hasn't been like a massive run up here in JP Morgan, like not exponential. I mean, we've run up $5 in the last month. Well, everything's up that. So it's not really up anything more than what the overall market is up. Bank of America's run up $1.50. I mean, I don't really consider this a run up because the market's been going straight up. It's not like they themselves have been bought ahead of earnings. Just everything kind of got bought. So I don't know if that still fits the bill as much as, it did last earnings season when we saw these stocks running up 7, 8, 10% ahead of the numbers. So I don't know if you've had that significant run up here. So that means the numbers could actually mean something. And I expect the banks to probably have pretty decent numbers. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see these things actually pop after. Now, we don't know the numbers for sure. Anything can happen, but I don't see why they'd have bad numbers.
All right, and Wells Fargo also reports tomorrow, big bank day, kicking off Q4 earnings season. This battle back from the false accounts debacle to make a new all-time high at 63.40. Also, Punk reports tomorrow, PNC. That stock at an all-time high. So, maybe just see if people are lightening up ahead of the reports. Spencer, 8:59 here. You want to wrap up today's show and preview what's on the docket for tomorrow?
Sure. On this show tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Russell Rose. He is a CFA, and he's also the director of program development for the Options Institute at Chicago Board of Options Exchange. So we'll be talking to Russell on tomorrow's show. But if you want to listen to any part of our show from today, again, including our interview with Scott Fries and his FANG Index or ETF, you can do that on our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, or by going to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BZTV. Thanks to everyone who joined us today in our chat at premarket.benzinga.com. Thanks to those of you who joined us in our YouTube chat as well on the live stream on that platform. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. And I hope you join us again on Friday for our final show of the week. Have a good one.